So they give us a sequence, 1.5, 4.5, 13.5, and 40.5. And we have to figure out what the 7th term in that sequence is. So we learned about 2 different types of sequences, arithmetic and geometric. Arithmetic would be that you are adding the same number to get the next term in the sequence. So first, if I want to see if it's arithmetic, I would take my 2nd term in the sequence, 4.5, and I would subtract the term before it, which is 1.5, and I get a difference of 3. So I will take my 3rd term, which is 13.5, and subtract the term before that, which is 4.5, and I get a difference of 9. So I can see I do not have a common difference because I would add 3 to the 1st term to get the 2nd term, and then to go to the 2nd to the 3rd, I would add 9. So since those are not common differences, I know that this is not an arithmetic sequence. So I'm going to erase this, and then I'm going to see if it is geometric. Geometric means you would multiply the 1st term by a common ratio to get the 2nd term. So I'm going to take my 2nd term, which is 4.5, and I'm going to divide it by the previous term, which is 1.5, and I get a ratio of 3. So that means I would multiply 1.5 by 3 to get my next term. So if I take my 3rd term, which is 13.5, and divide it by the term before that, which is 4.5, I also get 3. So I would multiply 4.5 by 3 to get the next term, which is 13.5. So far, it looks like it might be geometric. So if I take my 4th term, which is 40.5, and divide it by the term before, which is 13.5, and I get 3 also. So 13.5 times 3 gives me 40.5. So this is a geometric sequence. So it shows that my common ratio is 3, so I multiply a term by 3 to get the next term. Now, the question says, what is the 7th term in the sequence? So if you wanted to, what you could do is you could just keep multiplying by 3. This is our 1st term in the sequence. This is our 2nd term, our 3rd term, our 4th term. And then what I need is I need the 5th term, the 6th term, and then the 7th term. So if you don't want to use the formula, you could just keep multiplying by the common ratio of 3. So I'm going to take the 4th term, which is 40.5, and I'm just going to multiply that by 3. So if I take 40.5 multiplied by 3, I get 121.5. That would be my 5th term. So I could just take that, multiply by 3 again, and I would get 364.5. And then I could multiply that by 3 again, and I'd get 1,093.5, which is my answer, C. So the other thing that could happen is they could ask you for the 75th term or the 84th term, and then you would have to multiply by 3 many, many times. So you could do that, or you could use the formula that they give you on your formula sheet. So I'll show you how to use the formula. That's always an option, but if you can't remember how to use the formula, just keep multiplying by that common ratio until you get whatever term that you need. So on your test, on the MCA test, they give you a formula for a geometric sequence, which looks like this. It says f of x is equal to a times b to the x. And that's all they give you. They don't really tell you what a, b, x, all of that stands for. So I'll go through that. This is just a function, and then the x is saying what term you're trying to find. So in this example, it would be a 7, because we're trying to find the 7th term. A is equal to, you take your 1st term, which is a sub 1, and you divide that by your common ratio. You multiply that by b, and b is what we have called your common ratio in class, and then you'd raise that to whatever term you're trying to find, which in this case is the 7th term. So if I'm trying to find the seventh term of this sequence, I would take f of 7 is equal to my first term, which is 1.5, and I'm going to divide that by our common ratio, which is 3, and I'm going to multiply that by our common ratio again, which is 3 raised to the 7th power. So using order of operations, I'm going to do what's in parentheses or grouping symbols first. So I'm going to take 1.5 divided by 3 right here, which is 1/2. So I get f of, and we're finding the 7th term, is equal to 1/2 times 3 raised to the 7th power. So next I'm going to take care of my exponent, so I'm going to take 3 raised to the 7th power. And again, that's just the same thing as taking 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, right? Multiplying 3 by itself 7 times. So if I take 3 raised to the 7th power, I get 2,187. And then the last step is I would multiply that by 1/2. If I multiply that by 1/2, which is the same thing as dividing by 2, I get 1,093.5. So I get the same answer. So if you want to use the formula, use the formula. This is how you would use that. And if you can't remember the formula, again, if you know it's geometric, you just keep multiplying by your common ratio until you get whatever term they want you to find.